and facility stuff, and then all of the branding and marketing. And then I oversee all of the money that comes in to the church, and our bookkeeper sees all of our stuff that goes out. So, obviously, being an usher and taking tithes and offerings is part of what's coming in, so that falls to me. And we haven't been very good about doing a training like this since the very beginning, because it's just snowballed so quickly, and we just, it's been crazy. So I'm glad that we had this opportunity to just get everybody get on the same page and understand how important the part that your role is as being the team leads in making sure that we have our tithes and offerings and everything accounted for, and just making sure that we are using as many safeguards as we can for you guys and for the church congregation and us when we are processing and getting the money where it needs to be to get back to the central office in order to get it deposited and run the church. So Alex is grabbing some of the money handling agreements, which you guys have probably all seen, I would hope. Yes?
I need to reprint it.
Okay. All right. So, basically, I'll just give it to you guys. I'm just going to kind of read through it quick and just point out certain things, which this is all common sense. I know you guys know how important it is to safeguard the tithes and offerings, but sometimes I think it's always good to just a reminder of how important it is, and whether it's a penny or $1,000 check, it all matters, and it all matters in the grand scheme of things. Especially, I'll share a story. We have a gentleman in our church who does give a penny as a tithe almost every Sunday, and the first time that came through in an envelope that said his name and the 1 cent, I was kind of like, this is whatever, it's a cent, but as he consistently gives, I realized that I was being very judgmental in my thoughts of him. Like, he's just as important as those offerings that come in that, regularly give, or, we have so many different people in our congregations that I just think that's the coolest thing. Like, somebody who has nothing probably is still trying to give something to the church every Sunday. So, all right. So, the biggest thing about money handling, obviously, our guidelines are intended to just protect the character of the individuals who are performing the cash handling. We're trying to protect the church and the individuals from any accusations of mishandling in tithes and offerings, and then obviously safeguard the assets of the church. So, as a money handler, especially as the leads, I expect that you're going to be communicating this to the people who are also helping you or who are doing the money handling, and help them just understand that this is obviously a big part. This is how we run the church, is off our tithes and offerings, but also they're a big part in, it seems like sometimes I think money handling or counting of the tithes and offerings is kind of an afterthought, like, oh crap, I don't have enough counters, or who's going to count, or that kind of thing. And then we have people standing around with buckets just standing in the lobby, or alone in an office, or things like that. So as the team lead, planning ahead and being ready for that, it is one of the easier things, but it is very important too. So I just want you guys to understand that that's such an integral part of your morning, not only welcoming people and being a guest service person, but also this is a really important part too. So, as a representative of the Ransom Church and an approved money handler, basically this is what you're going to have, and when he brings them, you'll be able to read these yourself too. But this is what you've signed in the money handling agreement. That you're going to maintain confidentiality at all times regarding individuals' tithes and offerings. that are given to the Ransom Church. So keep that in mind too as you're picking other people on your team to be counters. They're gonna see probably big checks or little checks, like myself, like, oh, can you believe that somebody put a penny in the offering? Like, we don't need to, we want to make sure that we're consistently having confidentiality when it comes to individuals or, specific names. So when we go through the sheet, you guys know that usually for checks we put face down, and then that helps safeguard you guys against having to think about or just be human in your thoughts of seeing checks. I will not handle the tithes and offerings alone at any time. 2 representatives are to be present at all times. This is not only for ushers, this is in the office too. If somebody brings in money, Mary will bring it to me, we'll both sign off on it together that we've confirmed that, it's come in. So we want that for the ushers also. No related or married individuals will handle the tithes and offerings together at any time. So obviously, Mark and Odita would never do tithes or they would never count together. Additionally, I have 2 volunteers who help me to do the deposit on Monday mornings here in the office, and that's Edie Muller and Barb Archer. And Edie's downtown, Barb's south, and we'll probably try to find somebody from west also to come in and do that rotation. But obviously Edie, Jason is on staff and he's a pastor. He would never, other pastors, like if you absolutely needed Jake to do it, he could count because he never touches the money in the office. Same with Jason, however, Edie is in the office on Mondays. So if she is doing the count on Monday, we would not want Jason to touch that money on Sunday. Because again, just for accountability and to make sure nothing is happening. My husband, Jesse, never can touch money. He does guest services also, so he should never be holding a bucket, and he should never be a counter. And then Barb also, her husband's on guest services too, and so same thing. So just keep those things in mind. Immediately following the service, 2 persons will carry the contents of the offering to the office for sorting. Church tithes and offerings will never be taken to a private home for sorting or counting. That was more when we didn't have an office, obviously. We would not just take it to our house and count it later, So just a couple things about 2 persons carrying the contents and things that I would suggest, just things that I've noticed or seen in the past that I think we can definitely work on is just bucket protocol, I guess, or strategies. Like, first of all, we already talked about, and what I would strongly suggest, I know it's not always an option, but I've told Jake this before too, is if you can have, since you're on for a month, if you can try to have as much consistency of the offering counters as possible, that always is helpful because 1, they know exactly what they're doing, and 2, there's less room for errors, obviously, because it's just not working.
No.
Okay, I'll send it out. That's okay. And it just gets easier every time, obviously. Some services are way easier than others. Some have way higher amounts than others too. So if you yourself want to be a lead usher or counter, and then you always have maybe 2 other people who are on your team that you just rotate, however you want to do it, but I would say the less people who are counters, the better. So you just have that select group that are trustworthy, that obviously if you have been on the team for a little bit longer, those are good options. So setting those counters before service or even before Sunday and saying, you're my counter this week, or we're on for this week, then you're able to not have that crazy hustle bustle after, like, who's counting, The other thing with buckets is I would suggest at each campus you strategize who's going to collect the buckets. So typically you want to collect the buckets 5 to 7 minutes after service. Any offering that comes in after that, direct them to the black box, which is in the hub on the wall, and they can just drop it in there. Don't take it to the office. If somebody tries to give you offering, just say, oh, just put it in the black box over there. Don't ask the staff to take it. So Same with handouts, just drop it in the black box. I know sometimes people are late because they'll talk, and it seems like there's still a lot of people in the warehouse talking, and you're trying to wait for them to turn in their offering, but I think 5 to 7 minutes is plenty of time to just stand. So whether it's you as a team lead collect all the buckets and you just tell your ushers to stay at the door until I collect them, or you meet centrally, 5 to 7 minutes after, just that's really up to you, but I just strongly suggest making a strategy. Don't have, this is what's been happening pretty consistently, is one usher will come to the office and then there's nobody else with them. And then there's all these other buckets, and it's like, again, you don't have a plan. You don't know where we, let's collect them together. And then the gatekeepers are instructed to follow with the offering. So if you can meet in the warehouse, collect all the buckets together, and then that gatekeeper can easily not be like, easily just follow behind you. Like he's not going to be obvious about following you, but then you can stack them with yourself and 2 people.
So maybe they've been super stealthy, but I've never seen a gatekeeper following the buckets from the warehouse.
I actually asked about this a couple weeks ago or last month, and they're like, no, it's fine.
Oh, really?
So I don't think they understand that.
I was just thinking, I think that might be something we gotta.
I have to say it's been happening consistently for us this month at the 10 o'clock,
That
which is
gatekeeper?
really nice, yes.
And
The first time
sometimes
it
they
happened,
do
it
it. They
surprised
stay
me,
back.
and I'm like, oh, thank you for doing this, because
Yeah.
there's so many people, and you can't,
Yes.
and so it was really,
So
and
Jake,
I didn't
Karen,
know
and
if that was
Kellen,
something
if you
that was
can
new or
communicate
not.
that to the gatekeepers, that is important. They don't have to follow them, but
Actually,
they need to be.
they part the crowd. Still, I was like, oh, I love this.
Perfect example, like maybe some even gatekeepers still know that, odd gatekeepers, that might have been a different
Right.
thing, so it might just be good to bring
Yep.
something up.
But I do notice that they're always standing in front of the office door, so at least
Yes.
there's visibility halfway through
Yeah.
the lobby. I know, I generally get that sense that they're there waiting, knowing that we're coming.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, well, these guys will get with their gatekeepers and just communicate what's best. Again, it's gonna be a little bit different at every campus, because there's longer distances to move, and South Campus doesn't have a lot of distance to move to the office. Both West and downtown will have, you guys do have a lot more distance to travel. So the other thing I would suggest is that you meet inside the warehouse. Don't come out into the lobby and be standing there like, where's my people? Because again, you're standing there with a bucket of money or a stack of buckets waiting, like, oh, I'm missing a bucket, where is it? Obviously it's gonna be a lot easier to find somebody in the warehouse than out in the lobby. So meet inside the warehouse, collect all the buckets, and then walk together or meet that second person who's counting at the office. Any questions? Those are all good things. Yes?
Listen, so when we first started, the one thing that I guess we were thinking was protocol was always 2 male, 2 female, but I don't think that's
that's as
necessarily the
important
case.
because there's going to be the office volunteers in there. Don't consider an office volunteer a second person as somebody who can watch the money for you. So if there is somebody in there, don't just walk out with it, because their focus is on something totally different. So I think we're okay, because there's always going to be office volunteers already in the office working. So I think male, female mix. Use your judgment though. So, okay. Let's see, black box after. And then also, if anybody asks, obviously you guys probably know this, but just to reiterate, we do have envelopes at the hubs. So if anybody's does ask you and you're standing there with a bucket, I have cash, how do I, make sure to get my name on it or whatever, then just direct them to the hub and they can put it in the envelope and write their name on it, and then they'll get credit for their giving statement if anybody brings that up. Let's see. So that was that stuff. Okay.
You have a couple more minutes.
Okay, I'm hurrying. I'm sorry.
You're great.
So big thing as we're counting, you might have to share a few of these, but obviously again, I keep saying this. Obviously, maybe you haven't. I don't know, Justin. I mean, yeah. But pass those around. office, we have thousands of transactions come through the office on Monday. That would include our online giving, all of our checks, cash, all of that stuff. So the more neat and tidy you can make your bags, helps us so much. And obviously the less mistakes too. Because what we do is when we get the money on Monday, we open each bag one at a time and we confirm what you've written on here. So if there is a big discrepancy, which I've only had to make the call one time to somebody, like it was $100 bill was missing, but it was actually supposed to be a 10 or something like that. So if you can write legibly, so we know who actually did the counting, then we know who to call if there's something that is weird or off or whatever. But the neater you can make your stacks of money and all that stuff, that helps us so much, because we have four bags that come from downtown campus, we have 4 bags that come from South Campus, and we'll have 3 bags that come from West Campus once that starts, and then we have a ransom recovery bag. So we have a lot of bags. Then we have all of our money that comes into the office during the week. So we have an office deposit that we do. So that just gives you an idea of, the transactions and the money that's coming in. And again, just being neat and tidy helps so much. This is pretty obvious, but we find a lot of mistakes on these pretty often. So I just want to quickly go through. And again, the to-do is right on the wall in front of you. But as you take your money out of the bucket, whatever works for you guys. Some people have a special process. They specifically put pens in one bucket, whatever. That's completely up to you. The end result, we want a stack of the handouts, which you give to the office volunteers right away. You just hand them to them. Stack of the handouts. If there's any specific cards or something in there, then you make that stack. And then usually the leader or myself. So at our campuses, Angel will be downtown once West Campus starts. She will be our Central Services representative at downtown. I'll be at West Campus, and Mara will be at South Campus. So they will be kind of the go-to for the Central Services if you ever have questions or anything. And then myself. So any cards, then just a stack of the checks, which just put face down, stack them all in order together, and then all of the cash just separated into denominations. It's super helpful if you put them in the same face way, so all up facing one direction, because that's what we do for the bank, and they love us and give us candy for doing that. We need candy, because then we will put it all together and make one big deposit, so it's all faced at once. Sure, I'll say that. And then envelopes. If there's any envelopes, whether they're sealed or not, just put them in a stack. Sometimes you'll get some random papers or anything like that. Just put that in a sack, throw it in the bag. We'll get it to where it needs to go the next day in the office. So you guys just put your date, and then you circle whatever you're doing. The black box only needs to be collected the last service of the day. So if you're first or second service at downtown or South Campus, you don't have to do it. You just grab the black box after third. And then after second service at West Campus. Confirm the bags should all have the correct times on them. Make sure you grab the bag that has your time on it. If for some reason you accidentally grab the wrong one, which happens quite often, please just mark the outside of the bag, cross it off, make sure you put the right, because again, with the offering, we also do attendance. So there's lots of people who don't do the handout. Then we will use the checks as their attendance because we have their names. So we do that per service. So we keep track of who's on which service, who gave, and then we give that to the gals and they do the attendance for them. So if you accidentally mess up, that's completely fine. Just mark the second the bag that's supposed to be, just switch them around, and that's completely fine. And you can just maybe mention it to Jake or Kellen or Karen, or Mara or Angel or myself. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to go fast. This is all like, there's a lot.
I gave you 7 minutes.
I know. That's what you gave me.
I didn't even think I didn't know we were gonna do a whole money.
I threw away half an hour. know it's a check in there, don't count it as a check. Count it as an
Okay.
envelope. Because that's a common where we'll be like, oh, it says there's 17 checks, but there's only 16, and it's because they counted the envelope as a check. So that helps. Okay, quickly, denominations. This is a common mistake. We get a number instead of the actual dollar amount. So put the dollar amount. So if you have 25 or you have 10 tens, don't put 10 here, put 100 here. Okay? That's a common mistake. So, and then make sure you're doing your totals too, because that just helps us then make sure that we are confirming the same amount. Change, same thing, just put the dollar amount. Number of checks you count. Remember on checks that you're going to stamp the checks and make sure you're stamping the correct end. That's a common mistake. Common mistake is stamping the wrong end, so make sure it's the validation end. And then the envelopes, you just put the number of envelopes there. And then it says print legibly, you can sign or print, but just so we can read who it is, that helps us. You put this, don't worry about the batch name. Put this in, and we'll talk about counting quick too, but stack everything nicely on top of each other, and then just slide it in there. Don't fold it, you know what I mean? Just put it in there nicely and easily. Where will it be, Meg? It's by Mary's desk, deposit bag. If you mess up or something, or maybe we did miss a bag or something from the office, there are extra bags in the file cabinet. We don't want everybody in the world to know that, but as leaders, you guys can definitely know that there's some extra bags in there. So if for some reason something happens, like you seal it wrong or it doesn't seal completely or something like that, then please just let myself, Angel, or Mara know, and then we'll be with you to understand that you switched the bag and that it's a new one. And then this is the important thing. So as you two are counting, once you get everything separated, then one person is going to count the checks and stamp them, and the other person is going to count the cash and the envelopes. And you're gonna write in on the sheet, put it right between the two of you. One of you is doing checks, one of you is doing cash. Fill in your information. Then you're gonna switch spots, and you're gonna confirm. This is where we find the most mistakes, and we know that people have been doing it just together, like looking at each other. Oh, I have $15. Yes, that's what you have. Yes. And one person's touching it, so then what happens is maybe one gets stuck behind there, or something like that. So, or there's 100 and a 10 instead. So having both people touch the money and confirm, then if you find a mistake, just say, hey, just count these 20s again, and then confirm that that's correct and make that change. That's a big thing, because that typically is where the mistakes happen. You can tell who has been doing it separately or who's been doing it together. I think that's it. Oh, these beautiful things. I know you guys, everybody's like, how do I do this? I forget. So they should come like this in the bag. The office girls or our volunteers, they try to make it really easy for everybody. But this should be folded down. If it's not, then you just fold it down. And it's super simple, as you just grab this little, well, it's not as simple as it is. You just pull this out once your money's in there, and then you're gonna lay it down and make sure all the air is out of there, because you don't want this big balloon, and then you just push it down. And so it's like this. There's no folding, there's no doing weird things. This has always been a question. Do we sign the outside? Do we need to do anything on the outside? You really don't, because all of your information's on the inside. If it appeases you and makes you feel better, feel free to sign the outside. I don't care.
What about that strip?
Some people are like, I have to fill this out.
That strip?
This can just be thrown away.
Oh, okay.
Does not need to go back in the bag or anything.
There's
It's
a
just-
place to
there's
fill
stuff.
out, and then we were told
All
to
the
put it
info-
inside.
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
information is here that we need.
Okay.
So if you just put this and then stack all your other stuff on top of it, slide it in there, close it up. And then this goes in the safe in your office.
Question.
Yes.
I think this came up, and I think we asked you, we actually got a baggie full of, or a plastic bag full of coin.
change, yeah.
So don't count all
That
of
rarely
it.
happens. If it's in a bag, just consider it like an envelope.
Okay.
Just leave it in there. If it's a huge thing of change, just leave it in there, throw it in the bag, and we'll. That's Edie's favorite thing. She's always like, oh, there's so much change. Hates it. Cause she does. I'm just inputting all the checks, and she's the one counting all the cash. I'm like, I don't feel that bad, because when I get to it, and it's my turn, they're all stacking these. I'm like, yep.
One other thing, we did, a while back when we did the training videos, we made one on counting both attendance and money handling. So we'll be sure to go ahead and resend that out. That could be useful, especially for those you know are approved. It goes over, it doesn't go as in depth of everything that Alyssa talks about, but it does cover some of those main things that could be good for your head ushers or those people that you want to consistently kind of get those principles.
I hope it helped. I know it's a lot of what you already know, but.
I don't think I ever signed it. I've counted a few times.
Yeah, and what's funny is I said that to him, I'm like, well, I remember when I signed this.
Yeah.
And he's counted much more times.
No, that was very confusing. I didn't know any of this.
Oh, good.
I got all the training.
I know, I trained you, didn't I? And he does ransom recovery, so he gets it.
Speaking
So,
of that, do you want still, because I am the last service as well,
Yeah.
so do you want me to?
check the black box,
Black
yeah,
box.
just in case somebody might drop something in there. And you don't have to do a separate bag for ransom recovery, just check the black box and your offering, because it's so minimal that,
Yep.
just put it all in. I think the bag even had them right,
Yep.
offering and black box. Okay, any other questions?
And we could always touch base too during
Yes.
service.
Sorry it took more than 7 minutes.
You were good.
27.
So,
27. Good job, Lisa.
You asked for
thank you so much. Yes, sir. Thank you.